Part 1. The Alloy of Law by Brandon Sanderson is set 300 years after the events of the original Mistborn trilogy in a world that has undergone dramatic transformation. The once ash-covered land has evolved into a society reminiscent of the early industrial age, complete with railroads, electric lighting, and growing urban centers. At the heart of this new era lies the city of Elendel, a sprawling metropolis that symbolizes both progress and inequality. While technological advancements have improved life for many, they have also created new forms of crime and social tension. The story begins by introducing Waxillium Ladrian, known as Wax, a nobleman who has spent the past 20 years living in the Roughs, a lawless frontier region far removed from the sophistication of Elendel. In the Roughs, Wax earned a reputation as a lawman, bringing justice to dangerous criminals using a combination of gunplay and allomancy, a magical system in which certain individuals can ingest metals to gain supernatural abilities. Wax is a twin-born, meaning he possesses both allomantic and ferrochemical powers. Specifically, he can push on metals, allomantic steel, and manipulate his weight, ferrochemical iron, making him exceptionally formidable in combat. Wax's life changes abruptly when he receives news that his uncle has died, leaving him the head of House Ladrian. As the last surviving heir, Wax is compelled to return to Elendel to assume his noble responsibilities. Though reluctant to abandon his life in the Roughs, he recognizes the necessity of preserving his house, which is financially unstable and at risk of collapse. His return to the city marks the beginning of his internal struggle between duty and identity, between being a refined nobleman and the rugged lawman he has become. Upon arriving in Elendel, Wax quickly finds himself out of place. The structured, politically driven environment of high society contrasts sharply with the straightforward justice of the Roughs. He is expected to restore his family's fortunes through strategic alliances, including the possibility of marriage. His old friend and steward, Steris Harms, is presented as a potential match. Steris is practical, meticulous, and somewhat emotionally distant, offering Wax a stable but unromantic partnership that could secure his house's future. Her approach to life, characterized by detailed planning and risk assessment, highlights the increasingly bureaucratic nature of Elendel society. Despite his attempts to settle into noble life, Wax is drawn back into action when a series of high-profile robberies begins to plague the city. These crimes are carried out by a mysterious group known as the Vanishers, who specialize in kidnapping wealthy individuals during daring heists. Their operations are unusually bold and well-coordinated, suggesting a level of organization that sets them apart from typical criminals. Wax's instincts as a lawman are immediately triggered, and he becomes determined to investigate. Wax is soon reunited with his former partner, Wayne, a brilliant but eccentric allomancer who can create speed bubbles by burning bendalloy, allowing him to move faster than those outside the bubble. Wayne is also a master of disguise and has a peculiar moral code, often trading items he takes from others with objects he considers of equal value. Despite his quirks, Wayne is fiercely loyal to Wax and provides both comic relief and critical support throughout their investigations. Together, Wax and Wayne begin tracking the Vanishers, uncovering clues that suggest the gang's motives extend beyond simple theft. Their investigation reveals that the kidnappings are targeted and strategic, hinting at a larger conspiracy. As Wax delves deeper, he realizes that the structured society of Elendel may be concealing dangers just as serious as those he faced in the Roughs. This realization reinforces one of the novel's central themes, that civilization does not eliminate chaos, but merely reshapes it. The early part of the novel establishes the tension between old and new, both in the world and within Wax himself. The technological advancements of Elendel coexist with the lingering presence of allomancy, blending science and magic in a way that defines this new era. At the same time, Wax's struggle to reconcile his dual identities reflects the broader societal shift from frontier justice to institutional authority. As he becomes increasingly involved in the case of the Vanishers, it becomes clear that his skills as a lawman are not only relevant, but necessary in this evolving world. This opening section sets the stage for a story that combines elements of Western, detective fiction, and fantasy, introducing key characters and conflicts while hinting at deeper mysteries to come. Part 2. As Waxillium Ladrian and Wayne continue their investigation into the Vanishers, the scope of the threat becomes increasingly clear. What initially appeared to be a series of audacious robberies soon reveals itself as something far more calculated. The Vanishers are not merely stealing valuables, they are abducting specific individuals, often members of prominent noble families. These kidnappings suggest a deliberate pattern, implying that the gang has access to detailed information about their targets. For Wax, this raises troubling questions about who might be aiding them from within Elendel's upper circles. During one of their early encounters with the Vanishers, Wax and Wayne attempt to intervene in a robbery at a wedding party. The scene quickly escalates into chaos as the criminals demonstrate not only advanced weaponry, but also allomantic abilities. The confrontation highlights the dangerous blend of magic and modern technology that defines this new era. Although Wax and Wayne manage to disrupt the robbery, the Vanishers escape, reinforcing the idea that they are highly organized and prepared for resistance. In the aftermath, Wax begins to suspect that the gang's operations are being directed by a mastermind with both resources and strategic insight. This suspicion intensifies when he discovers that the kidnapped victims are being held for ransom in ways that seem almost theatrical, as if the Vanishers are making a statement rather than simply seeking profit. Wax's instincts tell him that there is a deeper motive at play, one that goes beyond conventional crime. Amid this growing tension, Wax struggles to balance his investigation with his responsibilities as head of House Ladrian. Financial pressures weigh heavily on him, as his family's resources are dwindling. His uncle's mismanagement has left the house in a precarious position, forcing Wax to consider alliances that he would otherwise avoid. His potential engagement to Steris Harms becomes a central concern, as her family's wealth could stabilize his own. However, Wax finds himself increasingly drawn to Steris's half-sister, Marasi Columns. Marasi is intelligent, curious, and determined to prove herself in a society that often underestimates her. Unlike Steris, who approaches life with rigid planning, Marasi is more flexible and driven by a desire to understand the world around her. She admires Wax's exploits in the roughs and is eager to assist in his investigation. Although initially dismissed as inexperienced, Marasi gradually earns Wax's respect through her insights and persistence. Her perspective as someone who exists on the fringes of high society allows her to notice details that others might overlook. Marasi's involvement becomes more significant when she begins researching the Vanishers' activities. She uncovers patterns in their crimes that suggest a broader network of operations, including possible connections to the city's underworld. Her analytical approach complements Wax's instincts and Wayne's improvisational skills, forming a trio that is well suited to unraveling the mystery. As the investigation progresses, Wax and his companions identify a key figure associated with the Vanishers, a man known as Miles Hundredlives. Miles is a legendary figure from the Roughs, once revered as a lawman but now believed to have turned to a life of crime. Like Wax, Miles is a twin-born, but his abilities make him even more formidable. By compounding gold, he can heal from nearly any injury, effectively rendering him almost impossible to kill. The revelation that Miles may be involved raises the stakes considerably, as Wax knows firsthand how dangerous he can be. The possibility that Miles has become the leader of the Vanishers adds a personal dimension to the conflict. Wax remembers him as a man who once upheld the law, making his apparent transformation into a criminal all the more disturbing. This development forces Wax to confront questions about justice, morality, and the factors that can lead someone to abandon their principles. It also underscores the novel's exploration of how individuals adapt, or fail to adapt, to a changing world. Tensions escalate when the Vanishers execute another bold kidnapping, this time targeting a train. The heist demonstrates their growing confidence and sophistication, as well as their willingness to challenge the authorities openly. Wax and Wayne pursue them, leading to a high-stakes confrontation that once again ends with the criminals escaping. However, the encounter provides valuable clues, confirming that Miles is indeed involved and suggesting that the gang's operations are part of a larger plan. Throughout these events, Wax's internal conflict deepens. He finds himself increasingly drawn back into the role of a lawman, despite his attempts to fulfill his duties as a noble. The more he uncovers about the Vanishers, the more he realizes that the structured systems of Elendel are ill-equipped to handle such a threat. This realization reinforces his belief that his skills and his sense of justice are still needed, even in a society that claims to have moved beyond the chaos of the Roughs. At the same time, Wax begins to question the nature of law and order in this new world. The institutions of Elendel, while more organized than the frontier, are also constrained by bureaucracy and politics. This creates opportunities for criminals like the Vanishers to exploit weaknesses in the system. Wax's experience in the Roughs has taught him to act decisively, but in Elendel, he must navigate a more complex landscape where authority is fragmented and often ineffective. By the end of this section, the narrative has built a strong sense of momentum. The Vanishers have been established as a formidable and enigmatic adversary, and the involvement of Miles' 100 Lives has raised both the personal and thematic stakes. Wax's partnership with Wayne and Marasi continues to evolve, blending humor, intelligence, and determination as they work together to uncover the truth. Meanwhile, the tension between Wax's dual identities, nobleman and lawman, remains unresolved, driving both his actions and the broader narrative forward. Part 3. As Waxillium Ladrian and his allies close in on the Vanishers, the investigation begins to reveal the deeper ideological motivations behind the gang's actions. What once seemed like a string of carefully orchestrated crimes now takes on the shape of a deliberate rebellion against the social and economic structures of Elendel. At the center of this movement is Miles' 100 Lives, whose transformation from revered lawman to radical outlaw becomes increasingly clear. Rather than pursuing wealth for its own sake, Miles appears driven by a belief that the current system is fundamentally unjust. Through gathered evidence and encounters with members of the Vanishers, Wax learns that Miles views the nobility and the city's ruling elite as corrupt and self-serving. In his eyes, the wealth and power concentrated in Elendel have come at the expense of the outer regions and the working class. This perspective resonates with the conditions in the Roughs, where lawlessness often stems from neglect and inequality. Miles's crusade, while extreme, is rooted in grievances that Wax cannot entirely dismiss. This complicates Wax's sense of duty, forcing him to confront the possibility that the system he is trying to protect may indeed be flawed. Marasi Columns plays a crucial role in uncovering the philosophical underpinnings of the Vanishers. Through her research, she discovers patterns not only in their crimes, but also in their messaging. The kidnappings and robberies are staged in ways that draw public attention, almost as if they are meant to expose the vulnerabilities of the elite. Marasi begins to see the Vanishers not just as criminals, but as a group attempting to provoke societal change, albeit through violent and unlawful means. Her academic perspective allows her to articulate these ideas, providing Wax with a broader context for the conflict. Meanwhile, Wayne continues to contribute in his own unconventional manner. His skill with disguises enables him to infiltrate various circles within the city, gathering information that would otherwise be inaccessible. Despite his often humorous demeanor, Wayne demonstrates a keen understanding of human behavior, allowing him to navigate complex social situations with surprising effectiveness. His loyalty to Wax remains unwavering, and his willingness to take risks proves essential as the investigation intensifies. The turning point in this section comes when Wax and his companions manage to track down one of the Vanishers' hideouts. The discovery leads to a tense confrontation, during which they capture a member of the gang. Through interrogation, they gain critical insights into Miles's plans. It becomes evident that the Vanishers are preparing for a much larger operation, one that could destabilize the city and challenge the authority of its ruling class. This revelation heightens the urgency of Wax's mission, as the potential consequences extend far beyond individual crimes. During Suno, this phase of the story, Wax's personal struggles come to the forefront. His memories of the roughs, particularly of his late partner Lessie, continue to influence his decisions. Lessie's death, which occurred under mysterious circumstances, remains a source of unresolved grief and guilt. As Wax confronts Miles, a man who represents a darker path that Wax himself could have taken, he is forced to reflect on his own values and the choices that define him. This internal conflict adds emotional depth to the narrative, emphasizing that the battle is not only external, but also deeply personal. The dynamic between Wax, Marasi, and Steris also evolves. While Steris initially appears detached from the investigation, her meticulous planning and organizational skills begin to prove unexpectedly useful. She approaches problems with a level of foresight that complements Wax's instinct-driven methods. Although her relationship with Wax remains largely pragmatic, moments of mutual respect begin to emerge. At the same time, Wax's growing admiration for Marasi introduces a subtle tension as he finds himself drawn to her curiosity and courage. As the plot advances, Wax and Wayne attempt to intercept another Vanisher operation, leading to one of the novel's most intense action sequences. The confrontation showcases the full extent of the gang's capabilities, including their use of allomancers and advanced weaponry. Miles himself appears during the encounter, demonstrating his near invulnerability as he withstands injuries that would be fatal to any ordinary person. The clash underscores the difficulty of stopping an opponent who not only possesses extraordinary powers, but is also willing to embrace violence in pursuit of his goals. Despite their efforts, Wax and his allies are unable to capture Miles, and the Vanishers once again escape. However, the encounter provides crucial information about their next move. It becomes clear that Miles is planning a final, decisive act, one that will force the city to confront the inequalities he seeks to expose. This impending threat creates a sense of urgency that drives the narrative toward its climax. Throughout this section, the novel continues to explore its central themes, particularly the tension between progress and justice. The advancements that have transformed Elendel are shown to be both beneficial and problematic, creating new opportunities while also deepening existing divides. Miles's actions, though extreme, highlight the consequences of ignoring these disparities. Wax, in turn, represents a more balanced approach, striving to uphold the law while acknowledging its imperfections. By the end of Part 3, the stakes have been firmly established. The Vanishers are no longer just a criminal gang, but a force challenging the very foundations of society. Wax and his companions are closer than ever to understanding their enemy, yet the path to stopping them remains uncertain. With the threat of Miles's final plan looming, the stage is set for a confrontation that will test not only their abilities, but also their beliefs about justice, loyalty, and the nature of change. Part 4. As the threat posed by the Vanishers reaches its peak, Waxillium Ladrian and his allies race to uncover the full extent of Miles' 100 Lives' plan before it is too late. The clues they have gathered point toward a final, dramatic strike intended not just to rob or kidnap, but to send a powerful message to the entire city of Elendel. Miles's actions are no longer merely subversive. They are openly revolutionary, aimed at exposing what he sees as the moral and structural failures of society. Through careful deduction and Marasi Columns's continued research, the group determines that the Vanisher's ultimate target involves a large cache of valuable metal, specifically adium, a rare and powerful substance from the earlier era that is believed to be all but extinct. The discovery that adium is still being secretly stockpiled by the city's elite confirms Miles's suspicions about corruption and hoarding. To him, this hidden reserve represents everything that is wrong with Elendel, wealth and power concentrated in the hands of a few while others struggle to survive. Wax realizes that Miles intends to seize this adium not only for its value, but as a symbolic act. By exposing its existence and redistributing, or possibly destroying, it, Miles hopes to undermine the authority of the noble houses and ignite broader unrest. This revelation places Wax in a difficult position. While he cannot condone Miles's methods, he recognizes that the existence of the hidden adium cache suggests a level of deception within the very system he is sworn to protect. As they close in on the Vanisher's operation, Wax, Wayne, and Marasi must act quickly to prevent the plan from unfolding. Their investigation leads them to the site where the adium is being stored, setting the stage for a decisive confrontation. The tension is heightened by the knowledge that Miles is not only a brilliant strategist, but also nearly impossible to kill due to his compounded gold, healing. Any direct confrontation will require not just skill, but careful planning and a willingness to take significant risks. Before the final clash, Wax faces a moment of personal reckoning. His memories of Lessie resurface with renewed intensity, particularly as he reflects on the choices that led him back to Elendel. He begins to understand that his identity as both a lawman and a nobleman does not have to be a contradiction. Instead, these roles can complement one another, allowing him to bring a sense of justice to a society that often lacks it. This realization strengthens his resolve, giving him a clearer sense of purpose as he prepares to face Miles. The confrontation itself is both chaotic and highly strategic. Wax and Wayne use their allomantic abilities in tandem, combining speed, strength, and precision to counter the Vanisher's forces. Wayne's speed bubbles create moments of tactical advantage, allowing them to isolate enemies and control the flow of battle. Marasi, though less experienced in combat, proves invaluable through her quick thinking and determination, helping to coordinate their efforts and respond to unexpected developments. When Miles finally appears, the conflict takes on a more personal dimension. The two men engage in a battle that is as much ideological as it is physical. Miles accuses Wax of betraying the principles they once shared in the Roughs, arguing that by aligning himself with the nobility, Wax has become part of the very system he once fought against. Wax counters that while the system may be flawed, it can be improved through action and accountability, rather than destruction. The fight itself demonstrates the stark contrast between their approaches. Miles relies on his near invulnerability, absorbing damage with little concern for his own safety, while Wax must use strategy and precision to survive. The challenge of facing an opponent who cannot be easily killed forces Wax to think creatively, using his environment and abilities to gain the upper hand. This struggle highlights one of the novel's key tensions: the difference between brute force and thoughtful intervention. Ultimately, Wax and his allies manage to thwart the Vanisher's immediate objective, preventing the adium from being seized. However, capturing Miles proves far more difficult. Even when they succeed in subduing him, his healing abilities make it clear that conventional methods of imprisonment or execution may not be sufficient. This raises difficult questions about justice and punishment, particularly in a world where certain individuals possess extraordinary powers. In the aftermath of the battle, the extent of the conspiracy surrounding the adium cache begins to come to light. It becomes evident that elements within the government and noble houses were aware of the hidden reserves, choosing to keep them secret for their own benefit. This revelation lends credibility to some of Miles's criticisms, even as it underscores the danger of his methods. For Wax, this is a sobering moment, reinforcing the idea that upholding the law requires not only confronting criminals, but also addressing corruption within the system itself. The emotional consequences of the confrontation are just as significant as the physical ones. Wax is forced to grapple with the realization that the line between hero and villain is not always clear. Miles, despite his actions, is not entirely wrong in his assessment of society's flaws. At the same time, his willingness to resort to violence and chaos ultimately undermines his cause. This duality leaves Wax with a more nuanced understanding of justice, one that acknowledges complexity rather than relying on simple distinctions. As this section concludes, the immediate threat of the Vanishers has been contained, but the broader implications of their actions remain unresolved. The exposure of the adium cache and the corruption surrounding it suggests that Elendel is far from the stable, orderly society it appears to be. Wax's role in uncovering these truths positions him as both a protector and a reformer, someone who must navigate the delicate balance between maintaining order and advocating for change. With the central conflict nearing its resolution, the narrative shifts toward addressing the consequences of the characters' actions. The final part of the story will explore how these events reshape Wax's future, as well as the broader direction of the world he inhabits. Part 5. In the aftermath of the climactic confrontation with Miles' 100 Lives and the Vanishers, Elendel is left to reckon with the revelations that have come to light. While the immediate crisis has been averted, the exposure of the hidden adium cache and the corruption surrounding it sends ripples through the city's Rajnaitik and social structures. Trust in the nobility is shaken, and questions arise about how such a secret could have been maintained for so long. The sense of order that once defined Elendel now appears more fragile, revealing the underlying tensions that had previously gone unnoticed or unaddressed. Miles himself is taken into custody, but his fate presents a unique challenge. Because of his extraordinary healing abilities, executing him proves to be far more complicated than dealing with an ordinary criminal. Authorities are forced to consider unconventional methods to ensure that he cannot escape or continue his campaign. His trial becomes a public spectacle, drawing attention not only to his crimes, but also to the ideas he championed. For some, Miles is nothing more than a dangerous extremist. For others, he is a symbol of resistance against an unjust system. This division reflects the broader uncertainty within Elendel as it struggles to come to terms with the issues he exposed. Waxillium Ladrian plays a central role in bringing Miles to justice, but the victory is not without personal cost. Throughout the ordeal, Wax has been forced to confront difficult truths about both himself and the society he serves. His experiences have deepened his understanding of justice, revealing it to be a complex and often imperfect pursuit. Rather than seeing the law as an absolute, Wax comes to view it as a tool that must be wielded with care and integrity. This shift in perspective marks an important step in his development, solidifying his identity as someone who bridges the gap between the roughs and the refined world of Elendel. One of the most significant emotional revelations occurs when Wax uncovers the truth about Lessie, his former partner in the roughs. It is revealed that her death was not the random tragedy he had long believed it to be. Instead, she had been manipulated and ultimately killed as part of a larger scheme orchestrated by hidden forces with an interest in shaping Wax's path. This discovery is devastating, forcing Wax to reevaluate his past and the motivations behind many of his choices. The realization that he has been influenced in such a deeply personal way introduces a new layer of complexity to the narrative, hinting at broader conspiracies that extend beyond the events of this story. Despite this painful revelation, Wax begins to find a sense of direction for his future. He recognizes that his unique combination of skills and experiences places him in a position to make a meaningful difference. Rather than retreating entirely into noble life or abandoning it for the roughs, he chooses to embrace both aspects of his identity. This decision reflects the novel's overarching theme of balance between tradition and progress, order and freedom, law and justice. The relationships between the central characters also reach important turning points. Wax's engagement to Steris Harms, initially conceived as a purely practical arrangement, evolves into something more nuanced. While their relationship may never be driven by passion, it is grounded in mutual respect and understanding. Steris's reliability and foresight prove to be valuable qualities, offering Wax a stable foundation as he navigates his responsibilities. At the same time, Wax's connection with Marasi Columns deepens, though it becomes clear that their bond is better suited to friendship and partnership rather than romance. Marasi's growth throughout the story positions her as a capable and independent figure, someone who is likely to play a significant role in future events. Wayne, as ever, remains a constant presence in Wax's life. His loyalty and unorthodox approach to problem-solving continue to provide both support and levity. Beneath his humor, however, Wayne's actions demonstrate a deep commitment to his friends and to the principles they share. His role in the story underscores the importance of trust and camaraderie, particularly in the face of uncertainty and change. As Elendel begins to recover from the upheaval caused by the Vanishers, efforts are made to address the systemic issues that have been exposed. While change is slow and often met with resistance, there is a growing recognition that the status quo cannot remain unchanged. Wax's involvement in these developments suggests that he will continue to play a role not only as a protector of the law, but also as an advocate for reform. The novel concludes with a sense of cautious optimism. Although many challenges remain, the events of the story have set the stage for a new chapter in the history of this world. The blending of magic and technology, tradition and innovation continues to shape the direction of society, creating both opportunities and risks. Wax, standing at the intersection of these forces, embodies the potential for progress grounded in principle. Ultimately, The Alloy of Law is a story about transition, both personal and societal. Through its characters and conflicts, it explores the complexities of change and the responsibilities that come with it. Wax's journey reflects the broader evolution of the world around him, highlighting the need for individuals who are willing to confront difficult truths and strive for something better. By the end of the novel, it is clear that while the challenges facing Elendel are far from resolved, the foundations have been laid for a future shaped by those who are willing to act with courage, integrity, and a willingness to adapt.
Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more videos.